It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
And now it's time for our gun truth of the week.
Gun truth of the week. Okay, this week's gun truth is pretty interesting. I like it, especially considering some of the things that we're talking about when it comes to sensitive areas and the vampire rule that's coming up. We should, it's kind of appropriate that we're talking about the vampire rule
It's
in October. There
That's
you go.
true.
A recent survey study of U.S. adults with firearm access found that about 91.7% of respondents had never used a gun in their lifetime defensively. That's a lot. Now, that mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean 91% of Americans haven't. It just means that 91% of the respondents haven't. This, was, by the way, was the Journal of American Medicine, JAMA. In that same study, the most common form of defensive gun use was showing a firearm to a perceived threat. So they just showed it. They said, hey, I got a gun. That was the defensive gun use. Most common form of defensive gun use, or DGU, in a recent survey of U.S. adults with firearm access showing a firearm to a perceived threat was the single most reported type of defensive gun use. So they didn't even have to pull the trigger.
Here's the thing. And I think that this just lends to the lack of truth in lending here, right?
Yeah.
So 91.7% of respondents had never used a gun in their lifetime defensively.
Right.
I don't know about you, but when I read that in that same study, the most common form of defensive gun use was showing of a firearm, I consider that use of a gun defensively.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, no, I don't think they were disputing that.
Right,
They were just saying that only about 8% of their respondents had done any kind of DGU. And the most common type of DGU was just basically saying, I got a gun, or showing I got a gun.
All right.
Rare on an annual basis, 4.7% reported ever having shown a firearm. Less than 1% of respondents reported any form of DGU in the past year. Usually no shots fired. Among respondents, actually firing at a perceived threat was a very uncommon thing, showing the firearm predominated. So in other words, first off, depending on the survey, we've talked about this a lot, between 500,000 times a year and 3 million times per year, somebody in America uses a firearm defensively, as a DGU, a defensive gun use. Most often, by far, it's just the fact that they have a gun. They don't have to actually pull the trigger. They don't even have to point it. They just have to basically say, "Hey, I got a gun," and show that they have a gun, and the defense is over. The person who was going to attack him or her has changed their mind and decided they're doing some bad things in life. If all the decisions they've made up till now led them to, faced with somebody with a gun, they're going to rethink what they're doing, and they're cheesing it. They're out of there. So it really, what it is that the fact that a firearm is the most effective self-defense tool ever invented, ever created, ever owned by man, cuts through all the political BS.
I think one thing that's important to point out is a defensive display is essentially what they're describing here. Is not legal everywhere. So I think it's important to put that out there. California doesn't allow us to defensively display.
Okay, yeah,
you're right. Outside of the home.
Yeah, and there's a whole segment of a class that you'd have to teach on exactly like you can't just what brandishing is, what brandishing isn't, when you can, when you can't.
Correct.
But if your life is in danger and you pull a gun out, and someone that's always legal. But 50 states, my life's in danger.
Right.
I'm pulling a gun out.
Right.
So I think in a lot of those cases, the person sees that gun's coming out, they're out of there.
They change their mind.
They're out of there.
They change their mind quick.
Yeah, but using, brandishing, to threat is not necessarily,
Correct.
Anyway, It's an amazing thing. I think that it's a very positive thing for firearms ownership. What we say all the time is get a gun, get training, get a permit, and carry everywhere you can. This survey, by the way, done by JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association. It's a bunch of doctors, not exactly a gun-friendly environment.
Right.
JAMA is notoriously anti-Second Amendment. So for them to come out and admit this, you can't run from numbers, and you can't really, you can't go against true science. So perfect. Anyway, there you go. And that is your gun truth of the week.
Remember that we are not lawyers and nothing that we say is to be taken as legal advice. Our sponsor, John Dillon, is a lawyer, and he has been helping to fight those gun violence restraining orders, GVROs, and more. So if you know somebody that's had their self-defense rights taken away without due process, give John a call. His website is dillonlawgp.com, and his phone number is 760-642-7150.
Okay, even if you don't live in California, you've probably heard what's going on in California. We have a special election in early November, and it's over Proposition 50. California is one of the few states where they can actually introduce law by voters. So the voters can actually say, hey, this is a law we want, and if we get a majority vote, it goes into law. I think it's most other states. I've never stopped to really count, but typically it's the legislature of a state that creates laws. I'm not a big fan of the propositions. I don't think that's how government should be run. It is really the very definition of big D democracy, where if you get one more vote than 50%, you get to trounce all over the rights of, the other half. And I'm not a big fan. Anyway, so they put up this proposition, Prop 50, and we talked a little bit about it. We've had some folks come on and talk about it. But just as a reminder, Prop 50 is the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, saying that, hey, we want more Democratic Party folks in Congress. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrap the independent board that draws up the congressional districts, and we're going to redraw the districts so that we get as many Democratic Party people in Congress into Congress, and then we're going to have the state vote on it to throw out independence and throw out nonpartisanship and just, side with the Democrats. And the way they drew it, it looks like the potential is that California would actually pick up an additional 5 Democratic Congress people, which is truly not representative of the state of California. Now, California is majority Democrat. That's true. But most of them are in L.A., they're in San Francisco. There's some purple parts of the state, like San Diego has turned pretty purple. But there's still a lot of Republicans in some of the rural areas, and they will be disproportionately affected by this. In other words, they're going to be left out of the political process. They don't, and the governor doesn't care. And a lot of the Democratic Party folks that are backing this doesn't care. So that's what they're voting on. They're saying, hey, this independent panel that was going to, keep it fair and truly representative of folks in the state, well, that's going out the window, and we're just going to gerrymander this so that we get 5 more Democratic Party candidates for Congress. Not just candidates; they're probably going to win. I mean, they're really, really stacking the deck in these different districts. Now, what does this mean for gun owners? Well, I got to tell you, we're nonpartisan. And the Second Amendment is nonpartisan. But the reality is what they're attempting to do will definitely not help represent gun owners. Forget about the fact that, hey, they're stacking the deck with Democrats. Look at the fact that they're taking more votes out of the hands of districts that have a lot of gun owners. So this is not something we can sit on the sidelines and ignore. And I thought this Politico article was pretty interesting, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Politico put out an article called "The Voters Who Will Swing California's Prop 50 Battle." Both sides in the battle over Proposition 50 believe they have the winning formula to engage the state's sizable Latino electorate, to focus their messaging on abuses of power by corrupt politicians who can be blamed for California's affordability crisis. Quote, "It's the swingiest group, the group that's moving the most," said Mike Madrid. He's a Republican strategist who's advising the no on Prop 50. So he does not want Prop 50 to pass. It's actually the No on 50 Protect Voters First Committee. Quote, "There's no partisan anchoring. They're literally voting against whoever is in power." So he's basically saying, hey, look, in order to win this battle, we have to go after the Latino community. We think they're the biggest group that is most likely to swing our way. Latino voters will make up 23 to 25% of the Prop 50 electorate, Madrid estimates, of which 40% or more are up for grabs, with the most persuadable targets younger Latino voters born in the U.S. He says, shows them less likely to respond to traditional Latino persuasion efforts like Spanish language ads and distrustful of politics and politicians more broadly. So he's saying, hey, the Latino groups, they're the most likely to side with us, and the younger Latinos are the ones that really truly distrust politicians and don't really respond to, hey, I'm speaking Spanish, therefore you have to do what I say on some of these ads. So it's pretty interesting. Let's see, the other side, the arguments for Prop 40 are arguments about basically what this administration, meaning the Trump administration, has done to terrorize these communities. This is from Yes on 50 strategist Juan Rodriguez. So he describes the Trump administration as a terrorist organization when it comes to Latino voters. Ridiculous hyperbole, absolutely ridiculous hyperbole. The article goes on to talk more about the fight with, for the Latino votes. And I got to tell you, Prop 50, it doesn't look good. It looks like in polling, it looks like it's going to pass, or at least it looks like there's a lot of work to be done to make sure it doesn't pass. Now, what I wanted to bring up and talk about is, okay, I think he's probably right. There are a lot of votes to be found against Prop 50 in the Latino community. But I got to tell you, this is a special election. It's an off-year election. There's nothing else on the ballot. There's nobody else showing up to vote for governor or president or any of these other high-profile places in office. This is just Prop 50. And I think one of the groups that's being ignored, gun owners. There are a lot of gun owners in California. There are more guns sold in California than the state of Texas every year. We all live in rural areas or suburban areas. There's some purple suburban areas that have a lot of gun owners. But if we as gun owners decide, hey, we don't want this and it's bad for us, and we truly mobilize, we can make the difference. We can be the difference. We can be the reason that Prop 50 didn't pass. But it takes getting off the couch. And it takes talking to your friends, and it takes going down to the gun club and saying, hey, guys, we all got to show up and vote on this thing. And you can vote right now. You don't have to wait till the first Tuesday in November. You can start voting right now. Go get your ballot. Vote no on Prop 50. Get all your friends to do the same. Find organizations local to you that are fighting against Prop 50 directly. We're partnering with Reform California, Carl DeMaio's group, because they're doing such an effective job. But no matter where you are in California, you have to vote, and you have to vote no on 50. And you have to get your friends and family and coworkers and loved ones and strangers at the grocery store and your shooting buddies and your shooting buddies' family and your shooting buddies' wife and everybody to show up and vote no on Prop 50. What Prop 50 will do to California is fairly devastating. And I'm not a big fan of hyperbole when it comes to talking about politics, but this is a pretty big one. The only good news is there are a lot of other states that are going, all right, well, if California's going to do that, then we're going to do even worse to them. And I think they're going to lose this battle, this gerrymandering battle. There are far more states out there that can pick up one or two Republicans if they gerrymander their state the way California is gerrymandering theirs, than the five that California is going to pick up. So I think net Republicans actually have a huge advantage nationally, but that doesn't help us right now in California. So California Prop 50, it's in big trouble. We need you to vote no on Prop 50. We need you to go find other people to vote no on Prop 50. So, Alicia, what are your thoughts? Did you vote yet?
Not yet.
I didn't vote yet, but I'm
Not
going
yet.
to.
Right.
What are have you looked at Prop 50 at all? What do you have any thoughts on this?
I have, and it brought me back to high school.
Yeah.
Taking government classes and learning about gerrymandering, and I remember thinking back in the day, how can they get away with that? When you learn about the definitions, terms like gerrymandering, obviously it's wrong. It's clearly wrong. How can a politician think that this is something they can get away with? And here they are making that veiled attempt, and And as always, if you look at Prop 50, if you don't really truly read the content, it doesn't sound bad. Because they give it a title, they don't call it gerrymandering.
Yeah,
they're going to call it what it is. And so it's just another attempt to try to pull the wool over.
it is,
and we got to wake up.
Yeah, and if you are someone who likes the fact that we live in a constitutional republic rather than a majority rules, big D democracy. This is one step closer to being a big D democracy. This is one step closer to, if we have over 50% of the votes, we get to tell the other half of the country or state or county or city, we get to tell them how they live their life. And stopping this now is definitely an important step. Do you remember why they call it gerrymandering? Do you remember the picture?
I don't recall.
You
no.
remember?
If I knew, I don't remember knowing.
So there was a state that the first time they did it, the guy that drew the district his last name was Jerry.
Okay.
And the district looked like a salamander, so they called it a gerrymander. And that's how it got turned into gerrymandering.
Is that real?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's totally real.
Story time with Mike.
You can chat GPT that, but you can. It looked like the district, had like a head, and it looked like it had two arms and a tail, and it looked like a salamander, and they called it a gerrymander. And the reality is, it is difficult. It's funny. Gerrymandering can be used for bad or good. Gerrymandering, for the most part, is used for bad. They try to get somebody to win, and they can't do it unless they, do this ridiculous whatever. But let's say you do have a community, in the middle of a city or whatever, and they do have shared interest. Whatever that community is, maybe it's heritage, maybe it's not heritage, maybe it's something else, maybe it's industrial, maybe it's economic, but maybe there's some community in a municipality who have shared interests. And if you don't, make sure they're all in the same district, then you're cutting them in half. So they don't get the representation that they need for whatever it is,
Right.
So, but that's, I don't know, is that really considered gerrymandering, or is that just, but
Trying to be fair?
Trying to be fair.
Right.
But the point is, we voters in California set up this, this nonpartisan panel to deal with those issues. That's what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to take into account what party or where they stand on an issue or whatever. They're supposed to, draw it so that it makes sense and it's fair and everybody gets representation. And this Prop 50 would completely turn that on its ear. And they're not even quiet about it. They're saying, we're doing this because we don't like Trump and we want more Democrats in Congress. So there you go. No on 50. Get everybody involved. And check out the political article. So everybody knows, Gun Owners Radio, we are nonpartisan. We don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, decline to state. We don't care. Libertarian, whatever. We just want you to respect our Second Amendment rights. But there is something happening in the world today. There is a cultural, political issue that we want to talk a lot more about, and we're not going to stop. It's not just going to be, something we touch on and then move on. I believe it's important enough for us to talk about it, call it out, and address it as much as we possibly can, probably every week for the foreseeable future. And the reality is it's so common and it happens with such frequency that there is an example of it to call out every single week. So that's what we're going to continue to do. It's political violence from the left. Now, that's a broad term. The left, the political left. whatever you want to call it, however you want to qualify it, but it's definitely the left side of the political spectrum that in this moment in history is far more comfortable with political violence, far more comfortable with using violence to achieve a political end. They're far more comfortable with fostering an environment to where hyperbole and extremism leads to people thinking it's okay to commit violence. So I wanted to show you yet another example from the left. And again, all political violence is bad. It goes without saying. It just bugs me that people have to stop and say all political violence is bad. Of course, it comes from the right is up. Blah, 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 blah. Stop it. The reality is right now, the left is a huge problem. It's not equal. It's not equal in scope. It's not equal in severity. The left, the political left, is committing the political violence, and they're the ones that need to stop. So, of course, we're against all violence. Of course, we're against all political violence. Of course, we're against violence that happens on the right. But the reality is the right isn't creating an entire universe or an environment where they're encouraging and fostering violence. That's the left. So, wanted to show you an article. It's from The Hill. Pressure grows on Virginia Democratic candidate to quit after violent text messages. Violent text messages. Okay, this person's running for in Virginia is running for the Attorney General position. The Attorney General, that's the person that prosecutes, goes after criminals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's also, the Democratic Party candidate is a guy who is sending violent text messages about a political opponent. Now, let's get into it a little bit. Pressure is mounting on Virginia Democratic Attorney General nominee Jay Jones to drop out of the race following leaked text messages in which he openly talks about violence directed towards former Virginia House Speaker Todd Gilbert, who is a Republican. A chorus of Republicans in and out of Virginia are calling on Jones to drop out, including President Trump and Vice President Vance. The Republican gubernatorial nominee, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, quickly jumped on the news, rolling out an ad tying her opponent, former Rep. Abigail Spanberger, who's a Democrat in Virginia, to Jones. Jones' opponent, incumbent Attorney General Jason Miara, I'm not going to be able to say that, Miaras, who's a Republican, released his own ad Monday asking for voters if they could trust Jones to protect their children. That's a key part, to protect their children. And we'll talk about why in just a minute. Spanberger has distanced herself from the comments, saying in a statement that she conveyed her disgust to Jones over the texts, but she's likely to face growing pressure over the development as Republicans use the story to attack her and other Democrats, arguing she isn't going far enough by not calling on him to drop out. So this isn't getting a whole lot of press. It's getting press and people are interested in it, but they're really not spending a whole lot of time on it. The mainstream media folks are just not talking about this much at all. Quote, in October, there's not a lot of things that can actually cut through. This is one of them, both for the AG race and then up the ballot and down the ballot, said Zach Rode, a Virginia-based Republican strategist who formerly worked with Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin's Spirit of Virginia PAC. This is going to motivate a whole lot of infrequent voters. In other words, people who don't normally vote, they're going to say, hey, I got to get out there and vote based on this alone. And it absolutely will persuade people to second guess, like actual people, their priors. They very well may consider split ticket or changing where they're going to vote. Let's see. The messages which were sent in 2022, so not that long ago, were first reported by National Review and later published by the Republican Attorneys General Association. Here's the quote. Three people, 2 bullets, Jones wrote in a text to House Delegate Kerry Conyer, a Republican, about Gilbert. So it wasn't that long ago, it was to another, it wasn't like it was even to his spouse or something like that. It was to another elected official. Quote, Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot, Jones wrote. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. That's what the the text actually said, quote, spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the two worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time, Jones told this other elected official. Coyner, in response, told Jones, who at the time did not hold an elected office, to stop. National Review also reported that in a follow-up conversation with Coyner, Jones suggested he wished Gilbert's wife could see her children die so her husband would reconsider his political views on gun violence.
Wow.
So here's the thing. So like I said, hey, can you trust this person with your kids' safety? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. I know that all of us have had our emotions run away with us when we talk about politics. I know that all of us have a text out there that we're not proud of or have made a statement that, certainly isn't our best foot forward. But this is so vile and so specific, and so hypocritical on the other hand. I mean, he's basically saying, I hope these people get shot because they support gun rights. I hope gun violence happens to them because they won't ban guns. And then by the way, comparing a political opponent to Pol Pot, Hitler and Pol Pot, how did we solve the problem of Hitler? Did we go to Hitler and convince Hitler to change his mind? No. It was enormous violence that got rid of Hitler and Pol Pot. And so when you take somebody and equate him or her to such a, heinous, horrible, dictator, leader, then you're basically saying, hey, whatever happened to them, it's okay to happen to this other person as well. That's what we mean by not only hyperbole, by comparing this, local legislator to Hitler, is extreme hyperbole and ridiculous extremism. But you're also you're fostering an environment where political violence can thrive. This is what we're talking about. They aren't simply disagreeing on a budget or simply disagreeing on, hey, we should do this rather than that, or I think we should name a park after this person rather than that person. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is somebody who's saying, hey, this person is a murderous dictator, and I hope that they die. I hope that they get killed.
Not only them, but their children.
Not only them, but their children.
Right.
There's something deeply sick about this. I think, and I say, hey, there's a text out there that from all of us that we're not so proud of,
or a meme that's
or a meme or something.
Right.
It's not that.
This is a whole different level.
It's not this. This
right.
is a whole different level.
Right.
This is a whole very specific, like fantasy, and this is what we're talking about, and it's not okay. And the fact that people aren't coming out in opposition to this person stronger. And when I say people, I'm talking about the Democratic Party. That they're not coming out and saying, hey, this person needs to go. This person needs to get out of public service and go flip burgers. Go do something that isn't anywhere near power. The fact that they're more concerned with either their race or making sure a D ends up in office rather than what they should be concerned about, which is a person who's saying horrific, horrible things beyond, the average, frustration with politics. The fact that all this is happening, they have to be voted out. They have to be confronted, and they have to be told this is not okay. And, the voters have to respond in Virginia. And I think, for the most part, Virginia has fairly reasonable voters.
Right.
So I'd be more worried in California. But in Virginia, I think you guys have a job to do. And, even if you do live in California or you don't live in Virginia, there's some emails and some phone calls you can make.
And people, I imagine you might know people that are in Virginia, even if you're not. So do some talking, inform them, educate them.
And most of all, when you're talking to your city council candidate or your supervisor or your mayor or you're talking to somebody about politics, make clear that, hey, this Virginia Democratic Attorney General nominee, Jay Jones, and the things that he said and the way that he said them is not okay. It's not okay. So, what are any other thoughts?
I just ditto all the things that you've stated. And I will say, when I first saw the headline, I thought, is this hyperbole? And then I got into it and I read it, and I was honestly a little blown away.
Yeah.
It's very shocking. Now, and one thing I was curious, we're not in Virginia, so I don't know. Is it that they're being silent, hoping that this won't get out, or are they being silent? Is it being talked about in Virginia? Is this something that is
not enough?
Not enough. Okay.
And I think it's all the above. Why are they doing this, or what's? I think it's all the above. They're worried about their own job. They're worried about their own party. They're worried about this guy. They're worried about somebody they disagree with getting into office. They're worried that an R. So let me go on to one more thing, because I don't know if it gets worse, but there's even more.
Right.
At the very end of this article, meanwhile, the controversy is threatening to grow. The Virginia Scope, which is a publication in Virginia, the Virginia Scope reported Monday that Coyner recalled a 2020 phone call with Jones in which he said if a few police officers died, then maybe they would stop killing people. Jones denied making the comment, according to the outlet, but Virginia Democrats are largely standing with Jones for now. A little bit of a he said, she said, whatever, but considering what the texts say and considering what this guy felt comfortable saying to this other person.
That my thought was that this is what he's saying to another person. How much deeper does this go within him?
Yeah, right.
What else is he? What's in the iceberg below the surface that he's not putting out there?
Yeah, and if he's comfortable with the idea of kids dying, then I have no problem believing that he said exactly this about police officers. Anyway, thanks a lot, Virginia. You guys have a huge job to do. Now, I got to tell you, every state's got a wacko running for office, so it's not just Virginia's fault, but it could be Virginia that has the solution, and that's at the ballot box. So, Virginia, do what needs to get done. Get this guy out of public office and make sure he is nowhere near power ever, 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 ever again. So, there you go. More political violence from the left. This is brought to you by Cargo, cases and rugged gear outfitters in El Cajon. Go to cargostores.com, buy something today, or visit them at 423 Broadway in El Cajon. There are two enemies of your firearms, rust and the government. The good news is Cargo has your back on both fronts. As a proud sponsor, they're helping us fight to get more pro-Second Amendment officials into office, and their rugged cases help you keep your firearms secure and protected. Built like a tank, Cargo cases are stackable, weatherproof, and ready for anything. Whether you're hitting the range or going off the grid, you need a Cargo case. Whether for your gun or other equipment, you need a Cargo case. And here's something that's just for our listeners. If you buy a Cargo case in the store at Cargo Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon, just mention Gun Owners Radio, and you're going to get a free desiccant pack. And that's going to help keep your gear bone dry, battle ready, and rust free. Visit them at 423 Broadway in El Cajon. Great products, great prices, and uncommonly good service. Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters. Cargo. Check them out. Okay, we got big, exciting news. There is another Second Amendment case that the Supreme Court is going to hear. And I got to tell you, it's been an amazing few years because for decades, the Supreme Court didn't hear any Second Amendment cases. And now they're starting to hear them almost regularly. It's kind of an amazing thing. But something extremely interesting about this case is it's a local San Diego guy at the helm. The attorney is Alan Beck, and we've interviewed him before. I know you've heard his name, but what an amazing accomplishment this guy has on getting his case to the Supreme Court. So we wanted to have him on the show and talk to us about the Wolford case. So, Alan, you there?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So the Wolford case, you're the attorney on the Wolford case. First off, congratulations on the Supreme Court agreeing to take your case. I think that's an amazing thing. I was just saying we live in amazing times that the Supreme Court is actually taking Supreme Court cases Whereas, throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, that just didn't even seem like a possibility. And now they're taking a series of cases, including your Wolford case. What are your thoughts about the Supreme Court in general and what they're doing with the Second Amendment?
Well, the Supreme Court has fairly clear-cut rules on why they'll grant the case. Here, there is a circuit conflict between the Second Circuit, the Third Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit. A circuit conflict is where appellate courts disagree on what the law should be on an issue of federal law. So here, the Second and Third Circuit have struck down what we call the vampire rule.
The
And
vampire rule. Yeah. Explain the vampire rule. It's kind of funny. I don't know who coined that phrase, but it's kind of funny that they call it the vampire rule. Oh, really?
Is the man that coined it. And we call it the vampire rule because Hawaii law, along with the laws in a couple other states, make it so that in order to carry a firearm, even with the CCW, in a private business, the private business has to put up a sign saying guns allowed.
Right.
Or you have to otherwise get affirmative permission.
Right, which is in the movies and in comic books, a vampire can't come into your home unless they've been invited, which is why they call it the vampire rule. They're basically saying, hey, you horrible unwashed masses that are gun owners, you're not allowed in an establishment unless they specifically give you permission because you're such an unwanted, horrible person for being a gun owner. That's the general idea behind the vampire rule, right?
That's correct. And as a practical matter, virtually no businesses put up that sign. And that's not necessarily because they don't want you to carry in there. You're taking a real hit on your business by putting a sign up that says guns allowed. We have dozens of declarations from Maui businesses where this case originates out of that say we'd like people to carry. We're more than open to people exercising their Second Amendment rights, but we don't want to take the hit to the business, especially in a place like Hawaii that is fueled by tourism. There's people from Japan and from Europe that get uncomfortable with a sign like that getting put up.
Now I have a question, Alan. In addition to the potential discomfort and the people disagreeing and the potential loss of business, is there, by placing a sign, and I could be incorrect in my understanding, which is why I love to ask you this, is there any potential liability that they could receive should an incident occur had they have had that sign posted? Is that part of their decision to post or does not? Does it open them up to anything from a legal perspective?
I think that's something that they take into consideration. And that's a possibility. But, these laws are so new that issue is unsettled, whether they would actually be open themselves up to liability. And that's sort of the point. They're easily opening themselves up to a lawsuit, right? And, whether liability is going to be established, they'll still have spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers.
So this law is not only compelling this business to essentially what it's saying is, hey, you can't do business with this, subset of people unless you publicly declare a political opinion that you have that is generally considered controversial. So unless you do declare, unless the government's compelling them to say, hey, this is where I stand on this political issue of firearms, and if you don't declare that, then you can't do business with gun owners is essentially. But then above and beyond that, there may even be, and this hasn't been tested, We don't even know, but there may be even additional liability with the idea of, people not being armed or whatever. If the business is, expressly giving permission, then there may actually be some kind of liability. If something happens or someone isn't protected or someone is hurt or something like that. Are those the two biggest ideas behind this case?
That's correct. And more to the point, this effectively eviscerates the right to carry firearms that's protected by Peru. Because businesses just simply won't put up this sign. So you can't carry 99% of businesses. And if you can't carry a private property open to the public, you pretty much can't carry in your day-to-day life.
I'm curious.
I mean, every day you go to some type of private property. Imagine if you can't use the restroom, while driving. You can't go to a restaurant. That's it.
So I'm curious. Alan. I know that this case here is specifically Hawaii, correct? And we did have the same vampire, the vampire invite as part of our SB2. Now, currently, we're in kind of this middle ground with SB2. We are awaiting a lower court to hear it. I'm curious if this goes forward and you are successful in Hawaii. Do you feel that this could have any impact, or would this have any effect for us here in California as well? Is there anything? How can this?
This will impact the whole country because it's in front of the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right.
So if I win, in front of the Supreme Court, then all the other vampire rules will be struck down.
No, correct, absolutely. And I love how the Second Amendment case the Supreme Court had that nationwide impact. But as far as will it really?
So it only affects the vampire rule.
Correct.
It won't get rid of other sensitive areas.
That's what I guess I didn't correctly word my question.
So it's a very correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a very focused lawsuit. It's not necessarily going to affect what is or is not a sensitive area. It's just that one vampire rule of saying, hey. The only way, and it's basically private property. A private property, we can ban guns on the government can ban guns on private property unless the property owner makes a political statement publicly. That's the focus of this whole thing, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing that will directly impact. However, by ruling in my favor, or at least hopefully, the Supreme Court is going to establish methodology that's going to make it much easier to go after the other sensitive places.
Yeah.
Because in order to evaluate the vampire rule, it has to tell the courts how you're going to evaluate sensitive places locations. And, one of the big things is the lower courts have been justifying the sensitive places by using historical laws from the late 19th century. And that's something that goes against what the Supreme Court was saying in Brune. So we're going to ask for a ruling that says historical analogs have to be from the founding era.
Oh, wow. Well, and the whole thing, I mean, one of the things, about these Second Amendment cases at every level is every positive ruling, every ruling in our favor of the Second Amendment reaffirms that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. Could you imagine if they said, hey, look, you can't let any Presbyterians in your business unless you specifically say we're okay with Presbyterians? You know what I mean? Or imagine, even something, even more ridiculous. If you've ever had an abortion, you're not allowed in my business unless I specifically say you're allowed in my business. And I think that other, religion and heritage and, other political subjects have been discussed so much, and they've won in court, and they've changed public opinion so much, and they've been the center of so many different political campaigns, that we think of it as completely ridiculous that somebody would say, hey, if you're a certain religion, I have to give you permission to come into it. We wouldn't even think of that. It's unthinkable, and it should be unthinkable with the Second Amendment too. But what we're in right now is we're in the middle of establishing, that exact same attitude and making sure that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. We're right in the middle of that fight. 20, 30, 40 years from now, they're going to look back on Wolford and Bruin and some of these other cases and go, okay, that's what really, truly changed culture. And it's going to be so... At least the goal is that if gun ownership and carrying for self-defense is going to be so acceptable that it would be unthinkable to treat gun owners differently than the general population, which is what they're doing with this vampire rule. We're kind of in this golden age, or I'm not even sure how to phrase it, Alan, but we're definitely in the middle of a historic fight when it comes to self-defense.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We're more of in a pioneering age. We're trying to establish the framework to normalize the Second Amendment as any other constitutional right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of threshold questions that still need to be answered. Whereas in the context of the First Amendment, we've got 120 years of established jurisprudence. So I've done a good deal of First Amendment litigation. And whenever you're doing a First Amendment case, they're pretty nuanced issues because the big issues have already been answered. Whereas in the Second Amendment context, the big questions haven't been answered yet.
That's phenomenal. So what do you think? What's the everybody wants to know the timeline. Everybody wants it to happen tomorrow. What do you think the timeline is for the Wolford case in the Supreme Court?
November 17th, I'll be filing a opening brief with the Supreme Court. About a month and a half later, the state of Hawaii will file their brief. Then I'll finally file a reply brief. Probably in late January, February, I'll be arguing from the U.S. Supreme Court. And then in sometime before June, the court will issue its ruling.
Wow. Yeah, June. That's usually when they come out, right around that time. There's something I want to tell folks about Alan. I've known Alan for a few years, and one of the big reasons I know Alan is because we're both here in San Diego. And I got to tell you, I never imagined there is so much Second Amendment stuff going through San Diego. And Alan is a perfect example of that, and Alan's a big reason for some of that. Alan, you were raised in San Diego. You went to college in San Diego. You went to law school in San Diego, and you started fighting for the Second Amendment here in San Diego as an attorney. And I want to emphasize to people that I know you've gotten a little bit of help here and there, and certainly some of the big groups are friendly towards you, but you're doing this on your own. You're not funded by a big, huge, organization. And that's not knocking any of the organizations. It's just that you decided, hey, I'm doing this on my own. I'm fighting this. A lot of the costs coming right out of your pocket. A lot of it is, you're rolling up your own sleeves and just saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. You're not getting some big fat check from some of the big organizations, which makes this.
No, I've taken no money for this case. If I win, I'll get some money. I'll try and force the state of Hawaii to pay my attorney's fees.
Yeah.
But my clients are working class people, that've stepped up to take on this unconstitutional law. And, I take the financial risk.
Which is unbelievable. I mean, and you have a very rich history of winning when it comes to Second Amendment cases, don't you?
Yeah, I've won won a few dozen Second Amendment cases. I've
I don't know if there's
He's
another.
so humble.
I don't know if there's another.
Alan.
I don't know if there's another attorney out there that can say they've won a few dozen
know.
Second Amendment cases. That's phenomenal.
You're a rock star. Thank you.
Yeah. I've tried to focus on issues that I really think that I can win on. You know, the major groups, the benefit of having a lot of funding is they can go for the home run cases, you know, like the AR-15 cases.
Yeah.
You know, where there's not a high level of, you know, the odds are you're not going to win that, right? But you can take that risk, you know. I find issues that affect, you know, the working class people that, you know, tend to be ridiculous. For example, on the Big Island, they were making people waive their attorney-client privilege in order to get CCW.
Wow.
You know, under the working theory that if you had a really good attorney, maybe you really did it. So you got off, but they had a right to look through your attorney files to see if there was evidence you actually were the sort of person that should have, a firearm, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the things
you know, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and you're hitting singles, and that's how you're winning the game, which is phenomenal. But one of the reasons I wanted you to come on the show is talk about this, and I wanted to, you know, reintroduce you to our listeners, but then also make sure that people understood exactly what Wolford was about. And we're going to have a link that's been set up that this is a fundraiser for Alan and for this lawsuit. So if you ever wondered like, hey, gee, I really want to give to a case, but I don't want the money to go, you know, get diluted in some way or whatever. No, this link, the money goes directly to this case, to fighting this case. It doesn't come through San Diego County Gun Owners. It doesn't come through another organization. This is going directly to the case. So we're going to have that link. And I got to tell you, if you're out there thinking to yourself that the Second Amendment sure is important, I wish people were fighting for it. Great. This is your opportunity. You know, throw $100 down. You know, anybody that owns a gun and has ammo, you got $100 in your pocket to give to an attorney who's busting his hump to get a case to the Supreme
Someone
Court.
with passion for it, proven track record.
There you go.
The briefing at the Supreme Court is relatively costly, right? Because you have to pay for, right? And so that's the additional thing we were trying to get paid for. And, you know, there's going to be quite a few additional costs associated with just simply passing on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm hoping to get some of those costs, taken care of.
There you go. So, okay, so the timeline is you'll probably actually argue somewhere around February. You'll probably get a decision somewhere around June. In the scope of things, that's 5 minutes from now. June of 2026 is 5 minutes from now. What else do you want people to know about the Wolford case or what's going on in Second Amendment in general? What else do you think is real important for listeners to know?
Well, I think that right now people need to be active at the grassroots level because these cases take years to litigate. And I tell my guys in Hawaii the same thing, that it's a lot easier to go to the legislature and stop these laws from getting enacted than for me or another attorney to spend 3, 4, 5 years of their lives to try and get the law struck down in court.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to get involved,
Yeah.
you know.
Ounce of
writing the
prevention.
letters,
Right, the ounce of
sending the
prevention.
emails.
Yeah, send the emails. Show up. You know, we have all kinds in San Diego. We have all kinds of volunteer opportunities. I do want to send a big special thank you to Jason Wolford and Allison Wolford and Adam Kasprinsky. I'm sorry. And then the Hawaii Firearms Coalition for being plaintiffs on this. This is fantastic of you guys to step up and do that. It's actually amazing to me, Alan, how many times I hear people like, oh man, I want to do something for the Second Amendment, whatever. And one of the things that we do is we help find plaintiffs for different cases, and it's amazingly difficult to find people to say, okay, I'll put my name down. We're not even asking people to, cut a check. We just need plaintiffs who are being affected so that, we can have a lawsuit. And it's amazingly difficult to get somebody to say, okay, I'll step up and put my name on this lawsuit. So I just wanted to take a second and thank Jason and Allison and Adam and, of course, all the fine people at Hawaii Firearms Coalition for helping Alan out on this, and thank you, Alan, for doing such great things for the Second Amendment. And you're doing wonderful work, man. I'm really, really proud to call you a friend, and I'm so happy that you're working so hard on this. And it's just amazing how dedicated you are.
Well, thank you very much for your support, Mike. And I look forward to bringing Help to Win to San Diego.
There you go. That'll be awesome. Okay, fantastic. We will let everybody know as soon as we know more. And thank you again, Alan. This is so fantastic. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep. All right. Take care. So there you go. Alan Beck, the attorney on the Wolford case, which will be heard by the Supreme Court of the United States, which I can't imagine this isn't going to go our way.
I agree.
It's such a horrible law, and it just seems so crystal clear, and it seems like we have the makeup on the bench right now. Mm-hmm. My hope is that they will strike down this vampire law,
right?
Not across the nation, in Hawaii, and then of course California. But then they'll give some serious guidance. The strength of the Bruin case was, hey, get rid of good cause, get rid of the subjectivity of CCWs.
Follow the Constitution.
Follow the Constitution.
Right.
But then the other part was, and oh, by the way, this is how you're supposed to rule on other Second Amendment cases, with the history and text and tradition. So it wasn't just, hey, get rid of that law. It was this guidance. And I'm really hoping Alan, alluded to it, that I'm hoping that the decision will do the same thing for sensitive areas, for quote unquote sensitive areas.
Right. That's it. And thank you for picking up and fixing my question. That was actually exactly what I was trying to get at. I just think.
Yeah. Is this going to help get rid of sensitive areas?
Correct.
It may not, and it sounds like to me, and I don't know, I don't want to put words in Alan's mouth. He's smarter than I am, but I think what he was saying was, it probably won't strike down all these sensitive areas. California is just everything's a sensitive area. Right. It probably won't strike it down, but it'll give guidance to what really truly can and cannot be called a sensitive area. I think that's the hope.
Absolutely. And one thing that wasn't mentioned too is if you carry a collapsible Asper baton, you're excited about that case. That was Alan as well.
Yeah, it was.
That was Alan.
Yeah, knives and batons, and
he's got a passion for the good things, and when he takes the case, I think it's a really promising, a really good promising aspect that he's going to take the things that he knows he can win.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, the Second Amendment has a sensitive area in my heart.
It's a sensitive space.
And you don't have to ask permission to come in. All right, cool. Well, awesome. Let's again, we're going to have the link, pitch in, give a couple of bucks, whatever you can do. But I got to tell you, $100 is a nice round number. Imagine if we could get 100 people to give $100 just to get this case over the finish line. That just seems so doable. So please click on the link, give $100, goes directly to this case. And fantastic. There you go. So let's talk about 1791 Group. If your business is in the firearms industry, you've probably felt it. Marketing's expensive, social media is hostile, and it's far too easy to get lost in the noise.
The 1791 Group fixes that. They help you to cut through the clutter by clarifying your message so customers instantly understand why they should buy from you. Then they build the systems, your website, CRM, ads, and content that actually turn interest into sales. And because they understand the community, they can even get your brand in front of our gun owners' radio audience, which includes over 100,000 engaged gun owners every month.
Don't waste another dollar on marketing that doesn't work. Go to 1791group.com, that's 1791group.com, and tell them Michael from Gun Owners Radio sent you. Start growing with a team that's on your side. Okay. Activism is not a spectator sport. You cannot be a wallflower and get something done in activism. So we want to give you some opportunities to get more involved, particularly if you're in San Diego, the San Diego area, which is only about 3.5 million people.
That's it.
So anyway, so we want you to get involved with our tabletops and our shooting social program. Tabletops are where we set up, somebody actually a volunteer with materials. They set up at a location, usually a gun shop, but sometimes other venues, and you come down and help. And we train you, and you're never alone. You get a free T-shirt, and you get to talk to people about guns. And if you do one at a gun shop, you get to hang out at a gun shop. It's a whole cool excuse to do that.
It's a very cool community to interact with.
It is. It's very cool. And then our shooting socials, those are actually educational. So people who've never shot a gun before contact us, and we set them up with somebody who has shot a gun before, and we all get together at the same time on the same range, and you get to show somebody. If you're an experienced shooter, you get to show somebody how to shoot your gun. It's very, very cool. We keep them safe. It's a first-time shooting experience. We encourage them to go, take a day-long or 2-day-long class after that, but this takes the mystery out of it. They have the opportunity to, hey, let's just give it a try. Let's learn the basics of function. Let's learn safety, and then let's actually get 50 rounds of 9mm through a gun and see just how fun it is. The big advantage that we have is that it's way more fun to shoot a gun than it is to ban a gun.
Right.
So that's what we're attempting to do.
Low pressure, small bite,
Yep.
so you get to taste it, to see and enjoy it. And then you get to decide,
There you go.
am I ready for the bigger commitment? And I know very few people that aren't. You taste it and you want more.
Yeah.
It's great.
In 10 years of existence, we've had over 15,000 people go through our shooting socials. Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome.
Such a quiet little program, and people show up,
Yep.
but we need you. We need more people. We see a lot of the same faces all the time. Go to sdcgo.org/volunteer. You see that up on the screen there. There are a lot of opportunities for you to volunteer. And all you got to do is pick a date and a time. It's usually, a shift is like half a day, 3-4 hours. And you click on it, it gives you more information. Where exactly is it? You sign up and say, hey, I'll be there. Here's the shift I'm going to take. And again, you just show up. We have somebody else who brings the material and gets it all squared away. All we need you to do is parachute in and assist. And you don't have to have a, particular skill set. You don't have to have a bunch of knowledge in your head. You just have to be there willing to participate and help us advance the Second Amendment. The other thing is, like I said, we've been around for 10 years. 10 years this month. San Diego County gun owners, 10 years. November 6th, Thursday at 6 p.m. at Elijah's. We're going to have a birthday party. We're going to have our 10th birthday party with all kinds of cool things. I'm really, really proud of San Diego County gun owners and our accomplishments. There are people that are in office because of us, like, pro-Second Amendment City Council member Laura Lothian in La Mesa, the mayor of Escondido, Dane White, Joel Anderson at the County Board of Supervisors, Sheriff Kelly Martinez. Without our organization, without our help, they would not be in office. We were able to get CCWs for people years before Bruin, and then after Bruin, we helped make sure it was a smooth transition and continue to train people to get their carry permit. When we started, there were about 1,100 people with a permit. Now there's over 25,000 people and counting. It's been amazingly successful. And I know we can do so much more good in the future. We want to celebrate our 10 years at our party. It is free. It's fun. All we need you to do is go to sdcgo.org, click on the banner with the balloons, and RSVP. And it's completely and totally free. And one of our very own SDCGO members, a guy who's extremely active when it comes to volunteering, it's our buddy Tyler. He's a firearms designer, and he's developing the next generation of firearms technology. He's combining bolt action accuracy with gas system repeatability. As a special treat at the birthday party, Tyler will be giving a hands-on preview of his 3D printed prototype. It's not a working firearm. but it is a full-scale model you can actually hold and feel. It is the next generation of firearms. It's a very rare opportunity to see something so cool. And word is several major industry brands have already shown serious interest in his design. So don't miss your chance to see the future of firearm innovation only at the SDCGO birthday party on November 6th. Again, go to sdcgo.org, click on the balloons, and RSVP. The last first aid class, it's October 25th, coming up at the end of the month here. Get your Red Cross first aid certificate. That includes CPR and AED training, as well as your Stop the Bleed certificate. Honestly, this is the type of training that everybody really truly needs and should have so that you can be a more prepared, a better prepared responder. You are your own first responder. Your friends, your family, and your community rely on you to have this knowledge. The last thing you want to happen is for somebody to suffer something horrible and you could have helped but didn't or couldn't because you didn't have the knowledge. Students at our class will be able to purchase the Prepared Protector IFAC, that's an individual first aid kit, for $50 off. It's normally $145 and you're going to be able to pick it up for $95. Sign up at gunownersradio.com. The last intro to modern off-grid communications class is also coming up. It's on November 8th. If you miss this, you're going to miss it. If you're tired of filtered news and secondhand reports, it's time to take control. This class isn't just for preppers. It's becoming a must-attend for civil journalists who want to get the truth firsthand. You'll learn how to stay connected and gather real information even when the internet, cell towers, or mainstream media go dark. Discover proven off-grid tools to track breaking events, to track weather, and to track emergencies in real time. So there you go. A lot of opportunities for you to get involved, have help others, have fun, educate yourself, be informed, be independent, be ready. Remember, the final class is November 8th, so go to gunownersradio.com today.
So when you're using it on your firearms, because it takes about 3 cleanings, so I like to say it's a clean shoot, clean shoot, clean shoot process, much like seasoning a cast iron skillet. So you're going to field strip your firearm, break it down, and then you're going to put our product on piece by piece by piece, covering the entire firearm. Then you're going to take the barrel, you're going to clean the barrel inside of that, and then you come back and you wipe it all off, and you're done. It's that easy. Remember, seal one and done.
All right, everybody's favorite segment, Sam the Gunman, Stump My Nephew. We found out years ago that my nephew Sam is extremely good when it comes to gun trivia. So if you email us a really cool question on guns or gun history or the function or whatever having to do with guns, and we use it on the air, we'll give you a hat or a T-shirt. And if you stump my nephew, you'll get a really cool prize. But good luck on that. Not a lot of people are able to stump my nephew. So without further ado, Sam, my nephew, how are you, man?
Well, how are you guys?
Fantastic. You ready for this week's question?
I hope so.
All right. Alicia, you want to do the honors?
I sure would love to. All right. Hey, Sam. All right.
Hi.
Hey, all right. So your question comes from Raquel, and she is in Point Loma. So Raquel from Point Loma asks, the Colt single-action Army revolver, introduced in 1873, is often nicknamed the Peacemaker. But before it became a standard issue for the U.S. Army, another revolver was briefly adopted in 1870. What was the name of that revolver?
There you go.
Raquel from Loma, thank you for writing in. The question was, what was the U.S. standard revolver before the Colt single-action Army?
Yes.
If memory serves, it was the Schofield.
Wait, say that again? You cut out.
They're both 45 caliber.
You cut out.
You
cut out.
But there's only way cross compatibility with ammunition.
Sam.
45 Schofield.
Sam. Repeat it. Repeat it. You cut out. So what is it again?
I believe it was the Schofield.
The Schofield. Okay.
There's a little bit of feedback, but if memory serves, the Schofield and the Colt had one-way ammunition cross compatibility. They were both 40 caliber. The Schofield ammunition was shorter, so it had this relationship like between 30 special and 357 Magnum, or 40 special and 44 Magnum. So you could fire the Schofield ammunition into Colt, but the other way around.
Interesting. So she writes that the answer is
The Smith & Wesson Model 3 Schofield revolver.
There you go.
That's
You want to show a picture of it? We got a picture of it there. That's pretty old school. Look at that. That's about as old school as that. Although, look at that look at that groove for your finger underneath the trigger. I'd like that. I wonder if I can make one of those for. That's kind of neat, you know. Little grabby area right there.
Was there a benefit to that, Sam? I know you can't
The
see
grabby
it.
area.
Yeah, you can't see it, but there's
That, of course, the technical term.
yes.
I don't know. If I had to conjecture, I would say it is, and it helps when reloading with top break revolver. But I don't know.
I don't know either. There actually is. I don't know if you've ever seen on the front of the trigger guard of a Glock. It's a little
Yes,
grippy area.
right. And unless your name is Lena Mikulek, I don't know anybody who has a great shooting grip or experience with fingers up there, and it seems like you should.
Well, back in the day, that's how they used to teach people to do it. But that was
the thing.
Yeah, like back in the day, like the 80s. I got my first gun in 97, I think, and I don't ever remember anybody shooting like that. Lena, shoots
Lena's
like that?
the only one that I know that does well with that. If you think about it, though, from a scientific, like a biological thing, how much strength you really have in the tip of the finger. I mean, it seems to make more sense to me to have that finger have the ability to aid at the more strong point versus on the tip. I don't know.
Well, Lena has a slightly stronger resume than I do.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with you.
I'm certainly not going to argue.
Stronger than mine as well.
That's how she does. Hey, man. So, Sam, awesome job. You did it. Nobody stumped you this week. I heard from a little birdie that you went and did some long distance shooting last week. Do you want to talk about that? Tell us what you did.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the little birdie was me. I told you. Yeah, I in my neck of the woods, literally the woods in the area, there really aren't a lot of good places to shoot out very far. The longest range that is available to the public without a membership near me only goes out to 100 yards, and that's still a good 5 minutes from where I live. So a friend of mine who's a very serious long-range precision shooter and reloader, and I actually, those of you who remember my blog post a little while ago about things I wish I had known before I started reloading, I commended him for that one. He invited me out to a range about 3 hours from where I live in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia that goes out to a little over 1,000 yards. And so I got to learn, we spent the day at the range, I got to learn how to do precision shooting. And it was really enjoyable. And more than that, I learned that it's a very different discipline of shooting than I was used to.
Wow. And what did you use?
A variety of firearms. He brought an AR that he built in 6mm arc, and that was a tack driver. He has a Barrett Trad and 300 PRC that he was confirming the zero on. I was checking the zero on my 18AR upper, but really the main reason I wanted to go out there was to shoot the Steyr SSG-04.
There you go. How did it do? So it's a 300 Win Mag Steyr SSG-04 with a 25 power Leupold scope. How did it do? Is that the first time you shot it?
That is the first time I shot it, because there really aren't any far ranges that are close to me. But I figured, well, you sent it to me because you didn't have anywhere to put it, so you turned your lack of safe space into my lack of safe space. Not that I'm complaining. It's a nice rifle. It did fine. I didn't do with it because I'm a small guy, and that thing is it's light for a 300 wig.
Yeah.
It sort of predates chassis systems popular. So it's in kind of it was designed as a military and police sniper rifle. So
Right.
it's in a composite polymer stock instead of a heavy milled aluminum chassis. So it weighs about half of what you want it to use it as a serious precision rifle. The recoil is immense.
And it has a nice big break on the end of the barrel, and that helps. But it is a very light rifle. It's certainly not a field gun. It's meant to be, shot from the bench because, like you said, it's a lot of composite and it's very, very light. But so, did you hit anything with it? Were you able to hit? Were you able to zero it in, or how did the day end with the SSG 04?
Yeah, the zero is pretty much dead on, which I expected because I know whenever you have any work done on your guns, you pay someone who has the requisite tools to make sure it's done right. So the scope would be dead on, and it was pretty much. I think I moved it a couple weeks over, but that's not bad for it having been not shot for a while and shipped 3,000 miles across the country. I'm not a good enough shot, and frankly, I don't weigh enough to really make that rifle do what it's capable of.
Yeah. Well, was it fun?
It was fun.
Good. What was the longest shot?
One of my favorites about.
Oh, go ahead. One of your favorite things? Go ahead.
The whole gun world, really, even just within the shooting sports, is you can never get tired. If you spend all your time practicing defensive handgun shooting, dynamic handgun shooting, if you're like USPSA IFTIC person, then try skeet and trap. Or if you're a precision shooter, try two gun or whatever. So I got to try long range precision shooting for the first time. And on our way back to the range, my buddy, who, as I said, is a very serious precision, works on all his own guns, has a surgically clean reloading room, a whole reloading room in his house. He said he has never done skeet shooting. So I was like, okay, that's what we're doing next. I'm inviting you into my world.
That's awesome. So what was the longest shot you made all day?
I hit a target at 930 yards.
Wow. Alicia, you ever hit anything at 900?
I was with the 6 arc, not with the starter.
Yeah. Have you ever hit anything at 900 plus yards?
I've never even tried, to be honest. No.
I don't think I have either. I think like the longest is like, I don't know, I'm going to say it's somewhere around like a third of that, somewhere around 300 yards maybe.
Yeah.
I know it.
About 300 is the most I've done as well.
Lemon Grove Rod and Gun out in Alpine has it out to
300.
Like 250. Is it 300?
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I was thinking South Bay. No, actually, Lemon Grove. If you know people and if you go at the right time, they actually will have the ability to shut down a portion of the range, and they actually will utilize the very back of the parking lot near the trailer, and they can actually get, if I remember correctly, somewhere pretty darn close to 1,000 yards. I believe.
Okay. Yeah. I never did that.
That's not normal.
No.
I think their normal is 200 and
From
almost 3, like high twos.
From the bench to their longest one is just under 300.
Right.
All right, Sam. Awesome job. Good shooting. Let us know how the precision long distance guy does in skeet and trap and sporting clays. All right.
Yeah, I look forward to that. And the lesson here for everyone listening is if you ever get bored of shooting, figure out a different shooting to do. If you're doing it right, if you're well rounded, you can never get bored.
There you go. Good advice from Sam the Gunman. Awesome job. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Wise beyond his years.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Let me tell you the story of a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee named Erna. She fled the bombings in Ukraine, seeking peace and safety here in the United States. And instead, on October 22nd, 2025, she was fatally stabbed on a Charlotte light train rail during what should have been a routine commute. This was no targeted attack. It was sudden, it was horrifying, and it was violent. It's a painful reminder. Danger can strike at any time, anywhere, even in places we expect it to be safe. Erna came here with hope, She worked at a pizzeria, she studied English, and she dreamed of becoming a veterinary assistant. Her life was full of potential, and yet it was cut short by someone with a long history of mental illness and multiple arrests, someone who slipped through the cracks of the justice system. Her story is not a tragedy, it's a warning, a call, a truth we cannot ignore. Preparedness and awareness are critical for our safety, no matter who we are or where we come from. You may never be the victim, but danger does not discriminate, and safety is not about living in fear, it's about being proactive, being prepared, and having the tools and confidence to protect yourself. That's why Not Me SD exists, because we believe that every woman deserves the power to protect herself. Yes, our heart is in firearms training, but true self-defense is about choices. It's about finding what works for you, whether that's Krav Maga, pepper spray, situational awareness, or another tool that gives you the strength and peace of mind. We are here to walk with you through the journey. If you're ready to take that first step, or if you want to bring a group of women together for training, we're here for you. Our mission is simple, but powerful, to empower women with the skills, tools, and courage they need so they will never be the next victim. Together, we are rewriting the story from fear to strength. This is more about training. It's about building confidence. It's about creating a community of women who refuse to be silent, refuse to be helpless, and refuse to be the next victim.
Okay, so we got a real bonehead of the week here. Might even be bonehead of the month. This is so ridiculous. I was actually debating on whether I even wanted to talk about this. But I think there's a lesson to be learned here, and I think it's interesting. Okay, so here's what's going on. You have Darrell Issa. He's a congressman out in East County, and his district, if Prop 50 goes through, his district's going to be all carved up, and they're going to really, really make it Democrat friendly. And once that was realized, a couple of people jumped in the race. A couple of Democrats jumped in the race and decided that they wanted to run. One of them is a guy named Amar Campanajjar. Now, he has run for Congress in East County before. He ran for mayor down in Chula Vista. And he's kind of desperately trying to get into office, frankly. I mean, this guy wants to be elected really badly. Whether that's good or bad, maybe he just has a yearning for public service. Hey, great, you know. He recently, a couple years ago, joined the Navy or Navy Reserves. And forgive me, I'm not trying to. I just can't remember. But he joined. He's an officer in the Navy, or it might be the Reserves. I can't remember. But anyway, and pretty clearly he's trying to fill his resume so that he can be more electable. And again, if Prop 50 goes through, a Democrat definitely has a shot of taking out Darrell Issa. Darrell Issa, who's very good on Second Amendment issues and very much fits the voters in East County. Now, Amar Campanajjar the other day put up a statement because October 7th, 2025 was the 2-year anniversary of the attack in Israel where Hamas went in and slaughtered hundreds of civilians. It was really horrible and tragic. It was brutal. They took hostages. They killed children. There was a music event where they were killing folks who were just at a music event. They were just at a concert, people in their 20s. It was on a Jewish holiday when they knew that they were vulnerable. It was really particularly horrible. And the whole world, watched. The whole world took notice and said, hey, man, this is really bad. So here's his statement. Statement on the 2-year anniversary of the October 7th attack. This is from Amar Campanajjar for Congress. Today marks 2 years since the October 7th attacks by Hamas that claimed the lives of unarmed civilians in an inexcusable, horrific war crime under international law. Good start. Good start, right? As a Palestinian Mexican-American, which is him, I mourn the loss of Israel's youth on that fateful day, just as I despair for the innocent children in Gaza killed throughout Netanyahu's military campaign. Okay, we're still in a direction here. I get you. None of us want children to be killed. No one child's life is more precious than another's. In truth, what these past 2 years demonstrate is that the lives and futures of Palestinians and Israelis are inextricably bound. Okay, I get what he's saying. Acknowledging the atrocities on October 7th doesn't negate the atrocities in Gaza. They should both weigh on our conscience. Okay, what does that have to do with? But all right, I'll give you a little latitude. Where are we going with this? As a U.S. naval officer who grew up in Gaza, like I said, he's really trying to fill out his resume. You know, I'm sure he's committed to the U.S. Navy, and I'm sure he's doing just fine as an officer. But I'm also sure that, you know, he did it to be more electable, and here he's leveraging that in a statement here. So, as a U.S. naval officer who grew up in Gaza, I carry a perspective shaped by both service and lived experience. How wars are conducted matters. Had I given the orders Netanyahu has, I believe I'd be court-martialed for violating the Geneva Conventions, the laws of armed conflict, and committing war crimes. There is a time for war fighting and a time for peace building, and the time to end this war is long overdue. Okay, what? Okay, this is the 2-year anniversary when terrorists from Gaza, Palestinian terrorists called Hamas, went into Israel, broke into Israel, you know, with brutal force and killed a bunch of people. And he's bringing up the leader of Israel, Netanyahu, and basically saying that the wars that he has overseen, are violations of the Geneva Convention. They're war crimes. Where's the leap here? Like, what are we doing? You know, what's going on? Because this isn't the 2-year anniversary of anything other than Hamas brutally killing civilians. He goes on to say that America leads not only by example of its power, but by the power of its example. It's my hope that the United States can help broker an agreement that secures the immediate release of hostages, establishes a lasting ceasefire, ensures the flow of humanitarian aid to starving Gazans now, and ends the bloodshed permanently so Palestinians and Israelis alike can live in peace, prosperity, and self-determination. I think this is about the biggest screw-up I've ever seen by somebody running for Congress. I mean, firsthand. I guess there's been bigger screw-ups, but oh my God. The messaging on this is absolutely ludicrous. I don't know if he decided this was a good idea and stopped listening to people who know what they're doing, or if he's hired the wrong people to advise him. But accusing the victim of October 7th of war crimes on the 2-year anniversary of October 7th is the most ridiculous, classless, tone-deaf mistake I've seen in a long time when it comes to politicians making campaign mistakes. And it's no wonder he keeps running and losing. It's like there's so many times I've seen him, you know, pull defeat out of the jaws of victory, and it's because of stupid stuff like this. I don't know how as a U.S. naval officer who grew up in Gaza, I'd be court-martialed if I did what Netanyahu. I don't know how that plays with active duty military. But it seems very ham-handed to me. You know what I mean? It seems very, hey, look at me. I joined the military for a couple of years, and now I know, you know, exactly what a world leader and, warrior for decades should be doing when he's surrounded by enemy. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But the fact that he, implies, I mean, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say he implies that the reason October 7th happened, the reason that the folks from Gaza, these terrorists from Gaza, went and murdered so many Israelis, that the reason that happened is because Israel, it's Israel's fault, that Israel is committing war crimes. That's why. So they were forced to go and kill babies in Israel. They were forced to go to a concert and slaughter civilians who were listening to music. I mean, that's what it smacks of. It's basically like, look, I mean, how short was the skirt that she was wearing, Your Honor? Talk about victim blaming. This is the worst advice as far as messaging I honestly think I've ever seen. What were you thinking? And this is from the, Sharon and Karen Left, that uses terms like tone deaf and victim shaming all the time. What were you thinking? So I don't know. I don't think, and by the way, if you look at the comments section, which we're not going to show, but if you look at the comments section, there were I'd say it's kind of split. There are a bunch of people that are like, yeah, we hate Israel. Because frankly, the Democratic Party right now has an anti-Semite problem. I mean, geez. They've had it for a while, but it's really come out lately. But, the other half were definitely, there were a lot of, hey, I support you, but I don't know where you're going with this, or this doesn't seem to be, something I support. So I don't know how many people are going to walk away from his campaign based on this one issue, but I think it's a lot. I think this is I think he's going to look back on this after he loses and say this was the beginning of the end of my campaign. I think before this, he really truly had a shot, especially if Prop 50 doesn't pass, he doesn't have a shot. ICE is going to win. But if Prop 50 passes, he definitely, before this statement, I think had a chance. Not only do I think this statement kills his opportunity to try to win in a post-Prop 50 world, but I think it's indicative. He's going to make more mistakes just like this. This isn't isolated. Unless he goes and fires whoever wrote this or goes to his professionals and says, hey, look, I screwed up here. I'm going to start listening to you. And there's no excuse. This guy has funding. He has donors around him. He has, high-profile people that have endorsed him and say, hey, I want you to win. People that can get him in touch with professionals where, he doesn't make stupid screw-ups in messaging. Irony that I can't get that quite out, but you know what I'm trying to say. The other thing is, now we know where he stands, though. So even if he hadn't screwed up the messaging, now we see his real feelings. I mean, this really truly is. Now, look, there's a lot of this where it's like, hey, I just feel bad for people that are caught in the crossfire. But then there's a big, huge section here that basically takes the opportunity to say, hey, it's all Israel's fault that Israel got murdered by terrorists. I don't know what he's thinking, man. It would have been better just to shut up. It's better to shut up and be thought stupid than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. So anyway, what are your thoughts, Alicia?
I think you're giving too much credit to people. Here's my take on this.
Okay.
I think, so if 50 comes through,
yeah,
right, and the lines change as you stated,
right,
the people that would have voted for him before, I think, are not going to read into this. They are going to, they're going to buy into whatever they already believed before. They're going to buy into, what do my peers think? What do my peers say? They're not really going to really think about this in the way that you're thinking. I think the people that are reading deep that get this already are against them. I don't know that it's. I honestly don't. I don't know.
We'll
see.
I don't know.
I hope that people take the time to actually understand the statement and not just because if you read it on its surface, right? He talks about children and babies and things, and if,
right.
And if you take it at its surface, I like children, I like babies, right?
Yeah.
But read into it deep and the truth of what you're saying, I don't think they're going to do that.
You don't think it's going to sink through?
I don't think they will.
The only thing I think in a lot of, I think I don't disagree. The only hope I have, I guess, is that they're changing the district in 50. If 50 passes, it is changing, but it's still East County. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this kind of anti-Israel, anti-Jewish crap, this kind of victim shaming, whatever, this goes over well in like the downtown Democrat extremist crowd. But I don't think there are. I think there are enough people out in East County who are Democrats who are going, yeah, this ain't right. I'm not doing that. Look, that's not what I'm signing up for. Mm-hmm. I'm a Democrat because my parents were, because I'm a union member or something like that. I'm not down with this. That's all. That's the only thing I'm hoping. If I get it, I think here's what I definitely think. If his district were downtown San Diego, then this would probably, he might be taking criticism for not being hard enough on Israel. Like they might be going, hey, this might actually get him. I'm hoping. I don't have any scientific data to show it, but I'm really hoping that the heart and soul that I know of East County would reject this. From what I know of East County, I think that he's going to lose votes rather than pick them up.
Let's hope so.
In fact, I'm not going to tell you who this is. Such a disrespectful statement on this day to any Israeli, Jew, or patriotic American, trying to distinguish between Hamas and the people of Gaza who support them as well as between the Netanyahu government and the people of Israel is deceiving and dishonest. Your statement equals to saying on Holocaust Memorial Day that we mourn the lives of the 4 million Germans killed in the Allies during World War II. And this person is someone who follows him. So I'm hoping that people see that. That being said, there's somebody else that says, beautifully written, you know? And I think that's the bonehead you're talking about.
Exactly. And exactly.
Well, we'll have to see.
They are likely not even educated as to the truth of the facts of the circumstances to even realize how incorrect.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah. And honestly, and really what I'm talking about, and I want to make clear, I mean, I definitely have my opinions, but this isn't, and they aren't in line with his, you know, except for I definitely have empathy for, you know, people that are suffering, you know, I get that.
Right.
But I'm not even talking about the statement. I guess, you know what I mean? I'm not even talking about like the content or where he stands.
Right.
I'm talking about the fact that the messaging, like you picked October 7th, 2025, 2 years after a horrific, terrorist attack. You picked that day to say that Netanyahu's a war criminal? Like, no, I think it does. In my opinion, my hope is that messaging is so ridiculously stupid. It doesn't matter where you stand, whether you're pro-Israel or anti-Israel, whether you're pro-Jew or anti-Jew, whether you're Democrat or Republican, that you can see that, wow, what a phenomenally stupid message on this day at this time for you, a candidate for Congress to say. My hope is that's the lesson is like, you don't even know what you're doing here. Like that's the messaging.
Right.
You know?
Well, my fear is that these people that are voting for him don't even know who Netanyahu is. I would not be surprised if we were to take a poll.
Yeah. Or it's like his reputation is so horribly damaged. So. But yeah, I like what this person said about World War II. It kind of is. It'd be like on 9/11 going, man, what a sad day. And I feel really sorry that people suffered on this day back in 2001. And I'd also like to point out the United States was really, really mean to Saudi Arabia.
Exactly.
Wait, what?
Right.
I mean, it really is.
You're right.
You're not, I'm not far off there. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. They definitely refer to, I've heard Israelis and folks that are supportive of Israel call October 7th their 9/11.
I have heard that as well.
And proportionately, it's actually, per capita, there were more people killed in Israel. It was horrific. It was horrible. They both were. There's not one that was more or less horrific, but it's definitely not out of line to make that comparison and say, hey, why you wouldn't say that on 9/11? Why would you say this on October 7th?
Right.
Anyway, great job, Amar. Way to think it through, bud. Anyway, I think his campaign is over. I think that he's done. And I think that he should probably concentrate on his naval career because I just don't think politics is for you, man. I've met him. I talked to him. I actually even talked to him directly about this, and I'm not going to tell you what we talked about and what the comments are. But he's actually a nice guy, and I think he sincerely cares about people. I also think this was an unforgivable mistake, and I think it's just done. We're just done.
Yep.
So there you go. Okay, so we did something cool, Alicia. You like CCWs, right?
I think I do.
I think you do. You even have one, right?
Yes, I do.
So
thank you very much, by the way, for providing that opportunity.
Yeah, well, of course. Gun Owners Radio has kind of turned into like a central point for all the PACs and all the other organizations. We've kind of become this, the media hub or the voice of the other PACs or whatever, so that it brings them all a little bit closer together, but they still obviously are their own independent organizations. So we've done something I think kind of cool. If you go to if you pull up sdcgo.org, that's San Diego County Gun Owners. That's the PAC. That's the political website. But if you add /CCW, it brings up this page, There you go. So gunownersradio.com/CCW now has all 4 counties and how to get your CCW. But let's say you're going to San Diego because you want that information, right? Because you live in San Diego?
Right.
So go to sdcgo.org/CCW and it brings up Gun Owners Radio's California CCW resource portal. Okay? It does the same thing on Orange County, on Riverside County, and on San Bernardino County. So if you go to these 4 websites and then add /CCW, it feeds you into Gun Owners Radio's California CCW resource page. So these are just 4 of the 58 counties, okay? But we're going to continue to add more. And only San Diego has renewal information. So we're going to add renewal information to everybody, and we're also going to add more counties. Eventually, LA and I don't know, what's another Ventura County and
Costa Mesa.
is that a county? Anyway, we're gonna have all 58 counties at some point.
Contra Costa.
Contra Costa County. Oh yeah, Contra Costa County.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. We're gonna have all 58 counties eventually, and we're aggregating it under gunownersradio.com, and we're going to continue to do that. Like the lawsuit section, things that affect all the PACs equally, we're going to stage them all on Gun Owners Radio. So there's one central point that everyone can go to. But even if you just go to the PAC page, whether it's Orange or Inland Empire or San Diego County Gun Owners, you'll be routed to the right place. So it's not so disjointed, and it's not like, well, wait, this page says this and that page says that and this, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be the same branding. So in the meantime, if you know anybody who needs their CCW, if you, in those 4 counties, send them to gunownersradio.com/CCW, gunownersradio.com/CCW. And there are articles, there's video, there's instructions. It'll basically walk you through the CCW process on how to apply. And then once you apply and get approved and need to take the class, you take that from an instructor, but this will at least get you through the application process. Kind of cool, right?
I like it.
There you go. So there you go. GunOwnersRadio.com. Get your CCW, buy a gun, get training, get your carry permit, carry everywhere you can.